Welcome back. Now, in June, Makhanda, which is formerly known as Grahamstown, is set to host the 45th edition of their National Arts Festival. But the city is currently experiencing the effects of their worst drought in 200 years. So what does this mean for the festival? Well, to discuss this, we're joined now by National Arts Festival CEO Tony Lankester. Tony, thanks a lot for joining us on Newsnight this evening. Now, it is quite a scary sight. And on top of that, to know that the residents of Makhanda are dealing with the drought, the worst, I think, in about 220 years. What does this mean for the festival ahead in June?
Hi, good evening, Faye. Thanks for the time to talk to you. You're absolutely right. It is very difficult living in Makhanda at the moment. It has been under pressure for a couple of weeks now as far as water is concerned. And obviously the concern that we faced as the National Arts Festival was two things. One is we wanted to make sure that visitors to the festival, because the festival is so important to the economy of the city, are safe and comfortable when they come, and they can be reassured that they will be able to attend and they'll be able to attend safely. But at the same time, because we're dealing in a real water crisis situation, which is seeing everyone in Makhanda having to reduce their usage of water quite drastically to about 50 litres per person per day, we wanted to make sure that the festival doesn't add any extra pressure onto that already fragile water system. So we've taken a whole lot of steps to try and make sure that the festival can continue and can continue safely and effectively, while at the same time not depriving residents of the water that they need to go about their ordinary everyday lives.
I mean, we're talking about those steps and processes, and especially given the fact that we've got tourists that are anticipating the National Arts Festival from across the country, and also would imagine even across the globe. So what steps exactly have you taken to ensure that, on one side, water is preserved, but number two, that the festival actually adheres to its top-notch standard, which it's seen within the last 44 years?
Yeah. So we've had to make sure that we have plenty of drinking water everywhere. That's the first priority, to make sure that at all of our venues, and we operate about 60 venues across the city over the course of the festival, so we have to make sure that there's sufficient drinking water. And this literally means bringing in water tanks, water tankers with water from out of town to fill up water tanks at each venue, and then distributing drinking water to make sure that our guests have access to drinking water. At the same time, we're working with all the places where people stay during the festival, the guest houses, hotels, the Rhodes University residences and so on, to make sure that there's sufficient water there for guests to shower and brush their teeth and so on. So that's the first thing, and that literally involves ferrying water around town in big trucks. We have been working with the Gift of the Givers quite closely. They've been in Grahamstown for a couple of weeks now, and they've been distributing water to residents as a very short-term intervention. But looking forward and looking at a more long-term intervention, they've also been sinking boreholes around the city. Now, we know that boreholes don't last forever, and it's not an all-time solution, but they are looking at generating a couple of 100,000 litres per day from the various boreholes that they've drilled. They've drilled one for us up the Monument Building, which of course is the festival hub. We use about 100,000 litres a day at the Monument Building when the building is very full and very busy, as it is during festival time. So the combination of making sure that there's drinking water, that there's sufficient water in the rainwater tanks on a daily basis, and making sure that while all of that's going on, the supply to the residents of Makhanda doesn't get interrupted. Those are all the things that we're busy working on.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit about the contribution, and I mean talking about the financial contribution, especially to the town of Makhanda, really, especially around the time of the National Arts Festival. I think that one almost underestimates just how much money is made, number one, during that time, and number two, just how much the people benefit, the community actually benefits around that time. So really the importance and the financial implication, should such a festival not happen, but also should such a festival be hampered in any way as a result by circumstances that are beyond your control, in this case, and that is water, then, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're not going to let something like a drought stop us from going ahead. As you say, it's a hugely important event for the city. It generates, from an economic point of view, it stimulates the local GDP of Makhanda by about 94 million rand a year. It has a ripple effect on the economy of the Eastern Cape province of about 370 million rand a year. Those are big numbers, and they're big numbers anywhere, but particularly in our part of the world, where we have unemployment that sits far higher perhaps than the national average. We employ directly as the festival about 400 people. For most of the people that we employ, it's the only job they're going to have for the entire year. It's their only source of income. So for them, the festival is a real lifeline. The supporting industries, particularly tourism, hospitality, and so on, also go on to employ further people. And then, of course, there's the artists. We stage about 700 different productions in the course of the festival. behind every single one of those productions, there's a creative team, there's a cast, there's a crew, there's people who have written the production, and they've been working really hard on these productions, and they deserve an audience. So our message to people is the festival's going to go on, the show will go on as it always does, and what we're saying to audiences, you need to come and support this. I think South Africa right now, more generally, needs something like the National Arts Festival. It needs the arts. The country is in a very precarious place at the moment, and I think there's a lot of bad news around, and the arts can really play an important role in helping South Africans find each other and find themselves and navigate through the very choppy waters that we find ourselves in as a country. The arts plays a hugely important role. So there's the economic benefits, which are very real and very tangible to people in this part of the world, but for audiences and the performers, there's the huge benefit that something like the festival brings, just in terms of state of mind and state of being.
Well, Tony, very quickly, before we let you go, let's focus on the positivity now. What can we anticipate ahead of the festival? I mean, what do you have lined up for us? You're talking about South Africans need this. Okay, then when South Africans get there and they get to Makhanda, what can they expect?
Okay, we haven't announced the program yet. We normally do that in the course
Come on, give me a sneak peek. Tell me something that I can hold on to, that I know that, you know what, come June, I'm in for quite a treat. And as you're mentioning, we're dealing with a water crisis here. So let's get over the water crisis. At least give me something. Give me something that I can look forward to come June.
Okay, so we have already put on sale 3 productions, and they're 3 completely different productions that I think are all extraordinary in their own way. First of all, we've got the Irish stand-up comedian Dylan Moran, who's been a big hit around the world, and he's got a huge following here in South Africa. He's coming to perform in Grahamstown. We've got the Drakensberg Boys Choir, who, as we know, are an extraordinary talent, and there's such a celebratory feel every time they perform. So it's going to be great having them on our stage. And then the third production that we've already put on sale is the newest work from Brett Bailey. It's his interpretation of the biblical story Samson, which is going to be extraordinary. So those 3 are on sale already. We're announcing next week a whole range of other shows, ranging from jazz to ballet to theatre, visual art. We've got some great performances. We've announced that our featured artist this year is Bernie Searle, and of course the work every year from our Standard Bank Young Artist Award winners, which is really the jewel in the crown of the festival every year. We've announced those winners already, and they're going to be hitting the stage with brand new productions, world premieres of a lot of amazing work. So we've got jazz, we've got visual art, we've got theatre, we've got dance, we've got music, we've got stand-up comedy, we've got magic, we've got family theatre, we've got street parades. I could keep going, so you must stop me when you've had enough. But we did a calculation a while ago that if you were to watch every single show at the festival, it would take you about 6 months to see everything.
Sure.
So the biggest challenge that our visitors have is to try and craft a program for the 2 or 3 or 4 days that they're going to be here. But there are plenty of tools to help you along that way. And it is an extraordinary event, and it's on many people's bucket list, and it's absolutely going to be there this year. So now's the year to get up those buckets, because we need them more than ever. Well,
Tony, I say that it's definitely a great sales pitch there. So we look forward to seeing you in June there. Tony Lankester giving us some more insight and details really around the National Arts Festival.